The red lights flashed across the command center walls. Captain pressed his three-fingered hand against the cold metal console and watched the numbers drop on his screen. Shield power at 30%, 28%, 25%. Each second brought them closer death. "Captain, they're sending more dropships," Officer Krenna said from her station. Her voice shook as she spoke. 50 more ships coming down from orbit." Beltar looked at the tactical display. Red dots filled the screen like drops of blood. Each dot was a Vorthon attack ship carrying 30 soldiers. The math was simple and terrible. The colony had maybe 200 security officers left alive. The Vorthons had thousands of troops. "How long until the shields fail?" Beltar asked. 4 hours, maybe 5 if we shut down all other systems, Chief Engineer Mortex replied. The old Zephyrian's blue skin had turned pale gray with worry. "But then we lose life support in the outer sectors." Belhar closed his eyes. 50,000 people lived in Kepler's Rest. Families, children, workers who came here just to mine crystals and send money home to their relatives on other worlds. None of them deserved this. The Vorthon Empire had arrived 3 weeks ago. Their massive black ships had appeared in the sky like storm clouds. At first, they only demanded the colony surrender its mining rights. The rare crystals found on this world powered faster than light engines. Every spacefaring race needed them. He explained that Kepler's Rest belonged to the Galactic Federation. The mining operation was legal. The colonists were peaceful civilians who had never fired a weapon. The Vorthons didn't care. Admiral Crexton, their leader, had given the colony 1 day to evacuate. When Beltar asked for more time, the Vorthons destroyed the colony's defense fleet. 12 ships and 300 good officers died in 30 minutes. Now the ground invasion had begun. Vorthon soldiers were mean and cruel. They wore black armor that made them look like metal insects. Their weapons could burn through solid rock. Worst of all, they took prisoners as slaves. Beltar had heard stories from other worlds. He would not let that happen to his people. "Sir, we're getting reports from Sector 7, Communications Officer Yenta said, her voice barely a whisper. "The outer defenses have fallen. The mining crews are falling back to the emergency shelters." Beltar nodded. They had planned for this. All the civilians were moving to underground bunkers near the colony center. The bunkers had food, water, and air for 2 weeks. But if the shields fell, the Vorthons would dig them out like insects from a nest. "What about the distress signal?" Beltar asked. "Any response from the Federation?" Yenta shook her head. "Nothing, sir. The jamming is too strong. We can't even tell if our messages are getting through." The captain walked to the window and looked out at his colony. Kepler's Rest had been beautiful once. Clean white buildings surrounded by gardens, wide streets where children played. Now smoke rose from burning structures. Explosions lit up the evening sky. Bodies of both defenders and attackers lay in the streets. His security forces were doing their best. They used mining lasers as weapons. They built barriers from metal plates and cargo containers. Some had even rigged mining charges as bombs. But it wasn't enough. The Vorthons had real military equipment. They had training. They had numbers. "Captain," Krenna called out. "Admiral Crexton is hailing us again." Raw. Beltar sighed. The Voron commander had been calling every few hours. Always the same message. "Surrender now and only half the colonists will become slaves. Keep fighting and everyone will suffer." "Put him through," Beltar said. The main screen flickered to life. Admiral Crexton appeared in all his terrible glory. The Voron was twice as tall as a Zephyrian and covered in dark scales. His forearms ended in claws that could cut through metal. 2 sets of yellow eyes glowed with cruel intelligence. Raw. "Captain Beltar," Crexton said in his deep, rumbling voice, "you continue to waste my time. Your shields grow weaker. Your soldiers die. Why do you make this harder than it needs to be?" Raw. "Because these people are under my protection," Beltar replied. "I won't hand them over to become your slaves." Crexton laughed. The sound was like rocks falling down a mountain. "Slaves? Only the healthy ones. The old and sick will simply die. Is that really better than surrender?" Raw. "Yes. Bellar said without hesitation. It is. The Voron Admiral's eyes narrowed. Very well. I grow tired of this game. In 1 hour, I will begin orbital bombardment of your civilian sectors. Your precious shields cannot stop my heavy guns. Every minute you delay surrender will cost 1,000 lives. Raw. The transmission ended. The command center fell silent except for the beeping of alarms and the distant sound of explosions. Officer Kremda looked at her captain with wide eyes. Sir, what do we do? Raw. Baltar stared at the blank screen. He thought of all the families hiding in the underground shellers, children who trusted him to keep them safe, parents who believed he would find a way to save them. He had no miracles left to offer. Raw. We keep fighting, he said quietly. We make them pay for every meter of ground. We protect the civilians as long as we can, and we hope that someone somewhere heard our call for help. Raw. Deep in space, far from Kepler's rest, a human patrol ship continued its journey through the void. In its communications array, a recorded distress signal waited to be discovered. The message was weak and broken, but it carried 3 important words that would change everything. Raw. Civilians under attack. 3 days earlier, the USS Defiant moved through space like a sleeping giant. The massive ship was 2 kilometers long and painted dark gray. Its hull was covered in scars from battles fought in distant star systems. Weapon ports lined its sides like the teeth of some ancient predator. Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair on the bridge. He was 45 years old with gray hair and tired eyes. 20 years of military service had taught him that space was full of dangers. Pirates, slavers, empires that thought they could take whatever they wanted. Morrison had spent most of his career fighting such enemies. Captain, we're picking up something on long-range sensors, Communications Officer Pete Collins said from his station. Collins was young, maybe 25, with bright eyes and quick fingers that danced over his controls. What kind of something? Morrison asked. Distress signal, sir, very weak. It's coming from the Kepler system about 3 days away at maximum speed. Morrison frowned. The Kepler system was outside normal patrol routes. Few ships went there except for the mining colony on the 4th planet. Can you clean up the signal? Collins worked at his station for several minutes. Static filled the bridge speakers. Then through the noise came a voice speaking in the common galactic language. This is Captain Beltar of Kepler's Rest Colony. We are under attack by Vorthon forces. Our defense fleet is destroyed. 50,000 civilians need immediate evacuation. Please, anyone who receives this message, we need help. They are killing innocent people. The bridge fell silent. Morrison's crew looked at him, waiting for orders. The captain stared at the main screen, thinking hard. 3 days to reach the colony. The message was already old. By the time they arrived, it might be too late. Collins, when was this message sent? Morrison asked. Based on signal degradation, I'd say about 18 hours ago, sir. Commander Lisa Grant, Morrison's second-in-command, stepped up beside his chair. She was a small woman with dark hair and sharp green eyes. Grant had served with Morrison for 8 years. She could read his thoughts just by looking at his face. Jake, it's a colony full of civilians, she said quietly. We can't just ignore this. I know, Morrison replied, but look at our position. We're alone out here. The nearest Federation fleet is 2 weeks away. If the Vorthons have enough ships to destroy a defense fleet, what can one ship do? Chief Engineer Bobby Torres spoke up from the engineering station. Torres was a big man with thick arms and oil-stained hands. Captain, the Defiant isn't just any ship. We've got the latest weapons and shields. We can take on odds that would crush most vessels. Flight Commander Amy Sullivan nodded from her position near the tactical display. Sullivan led the ship's fighter squadron. She was tall and athletic with short blonde hair and confidence that filled the room. My pilots are ready for anything, sir. We've trained for rescue missions. Morrison looked around at his crew. These were good people, veterans who had followed him through the Century Wars and a dozen smaller conflicts. They had never turned their backs on those in need. He wouldn't ask them to start Torres. Can we push the engines harder than normal? Morrison asked. The engineer grinned. How much harder? I want to cut our travel time to 2 days instead of 3. Torres whistled low. That's risky, Captain. We'll be running the fusion reactors at 110%. If something goes wrong, we could lose the entire engine room. Can you do it? Yes, sir, but I'll need to shut down all non-essential systems. No hot showers, no recreation decks, no fancy meals in the officers' mess. Morrison smiled grimly. I think we can live without luxuries for a few days. He turned to his navigator. Set course for the Kepler system, maximum burn. Aye, sir, the navigator replied. His fingers flew over the controls. Course laid in. Engage! The Defiance engines roared to life. The ship lurched forward as it accelerated to dangerous speeds. Throughout the vessel, crew members felt the vibration in their bones. This was no ordinary patrol crew. This was a race against time. Commander Grant moved to her tactical station. I'll start reviewing what we know about Vorthon fleet tactics. If we're going up against an invasion force, we need every advantage we can get. Good thinking, Morrison said. Sullivan, get your pilots ready. I want every fighter checked and loaded for combat. We might need to hit multiple targets at once. Already on it, Captain, Sullivan replied. My people are running final diagnostics now. Dr. Dan Rodriguez appeared on the bridge. The medical officer was an older man with gentle hands and worried eyes. Captain, I heard about the rescue mission. How many civilians are we talking about? 50,000, Morrison answered. Rodriguez's face went pale. Sir, our medical facilities can handle maybe 500 serious cases. If the colony is under attack, there could be thousands of wounded. Do what you can, Doc. Convert cargo bays to temporary hospitals if you have to. We'll worry about the details after we save them. The bridge crew worked through the night preparing for battle. Grant studied enemy ship designs and weapon capabilities. Sullivan briefed her pilots on attack patterns. Torres pushed the engines to their limits while monitoring every system for signs of failure. Morrison stood at the main window, watching stars streak past as the ship flew through hyperspace. Somewhere ahead lay a colony under siege, 50,000 people who had no idea help was coming. The captain had fought many battles, but this felt different. This time, innocent lives hung in the balance. Collins tried to send a message to Kepler's rest. Morrison ordered, "Tell them the cavalry is coming." "Sir, at this distance and speed, I'm not sure they'll receive it." "Send it anyway. If there's even a small chance they'll hear it, they deserve to know they're not alone." The young officer nodded and began transmitting the message. It was simple. Hold on, help is coming. 2 days later, the USS Defiant dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system. The metal around him began to glow red hot from the enemy fire. He could smell his own fur burning from the heat. "This is it," he whispered to himself. At least he had given the family time to run. But then mining supervisor Kelson appeared with a heavy drilling unit. The machine was designed to bore through solid stone. When Kelson fired it at the Vorthans, the high-pressure beam knocked 2 of them off their feet and sent them flying backward. "Come on," Kelson shouted. "We have to get out of here." Turn grabbed his remaining equipment and ran with the supervisor toward the shelter entrance. Behind them, more Vorthan soldiers appeared, but the 2 colony defenders made it to safety just as the heavy blast doors closed. In orbit above the planet, Admiral Crexton watched the battle reports on his command ship. The invasion was going well, but not as quickly as he had hoped. The colonists were putting up more resistance than expected. His soldiers had taken heavy casualties trying to advance through the mining equipment and improvised defenses. "Admiral, our ground forces have secured 60% of the colony surface," his tactical officer reported. "However, most of the civilians have reached the underground shelters." Crexton's forearms gestured impatiently. "How long to break into the shelters?" "Our engineers estimate 12 hours to cut through the blast doors, sir. The colonists built them well." 12 hours! Crexton's yellow eyes glowed with anger. "I don't have 12 hours. The longer we stay here, the more likely it is that Federation reinforcements will arrive." The Admiral stared at the planet below. The colony's shields were almost gone. Soon, he could begin orbital bombardment of the surface structures. But that wouldn't reach the people hiding underground. "Prepare the deep strike missiles," Crexton ordered. "Load them with seismic charges. We'll shake those colonists out of their holes." His weapons officer looked nervous. "Sir, those charges will cause massive underground collapses. The civilian casualties will be enormous." "Good," Crexton said coldly. "Dead civilians can't fight back, and live ones make better slaves when they're properly frightened." Back in the colony command center, Captain Veltar received the final reports from his security teams. Half of his officers were dead or wounded. The rest were trapped in small pockets throughout the colony, running low on ammunition and power cells. "Shield strength at 8%, Morch announced. "I'm reading massive energy signatures from the Vorhan fleet. They're charging their main guns." Veltar nodded grimly. He had expected this. Once the shields failed, the orbital bombardment would begin. The surface buildings would be destroyed in minutes. But the real horror would come after that, when the Vorhans started digging for the people hiding below. "Send one final message on all emergency frequencies," Veltar ordered. "Tell anyone out there that we fought as long as we could."